Welcome to our roundup of the 2012 ABTA Travel Matters Policy Conference held here in Westminster. It's been a fantastic morning. What we've seen today is a high-profile lineup of speakers talking about the issues that affect the travel industry, whether that's inbound, outbound or domestic. We've had ministers, industry leaders and ABTA people up here talking about the issues that matter to ABTA members. The day opened with Justine Greening, who's the Secretary of State for Transport, outlining her vision of what her department's role is in the coming years. There was no flash announcements in here, but what we did find out today was that she intends for the aviation policy document, that's the piece of government policy that sets out what's going to happen to aviation policy in the future, will hopefully be out by the end of this year. She says her dead stop date where it has to be published is March next year, but she wants it out in 2012. Now that's good news because ABTA's been calling for it to be published so we can have a look at what the government's proposing and really have an evidence-based debate about what future there is for aviation and how we can make the most out of air travel in the UK. Ian Ailes, who of course is from Thomas Cook, opened with a fantastic and powerful attack on air passenger duty. He really presented a case that said air passenger duty is not only damaging to the UK economy, but it's damaging to the destinations that his company takes tourists to. It's a really powerful line that we haven't heard enough of in the debate to date that says air passenger duty not only affects the UK economy, it affects important destinations' economies too. But it wasn't all bad news. Graham Pickett from Deloitte offered us a rosy outlook of the future, noting that 20% of consumers will be spending more on their holiday than they have done up to now. It's still a challenging time ahead, and that was a message that came through in his presentation, but also it's one that we need to look forward to actually brighter times ahead. Now, ABTA's Stephen D'Alfonso, who is of course our Senior Research and Public Affairs Manager, presented a first for an ABTA Travel Matters conference, and in fact a first for our industry, in presenting a set of figures that for the first time quantified the contribution of outbound tourism. Now you can be buried under a mound of reports that quantifies the contribution from inbound and domestic tourism. We're all familiar with the £118 billion figure for domestic tourism and about £20 billion contribution from inbound. What we had today was for the first time a balance argument that says this is the contribution made by outbound tourism. Now you can find the figures yourself on abta.com/driving growth, but to give you a sense of the headlines that Stephen was talking about, £54 billion, that's the contribution across the supply chain of outbound tourism to the UK economy. Now this is really important, not only because for the first time it gives us something we can take to government to say, look at the contribution of the outbound sector, look how it sits aside domestic and inbound to represent a huge contribution from all different types of tourism. It also offers us a chance to make the case for a proper tourism mix. Now that was the subject of a later panel discussion where a distinguished panel debated about inbound, outbound and domestic tourism. Now you've probably seen the debate over the Visit England advert that encouraged people to stay at home. You probably also heard that ABTA were very vocal in saying that government should be promoting holidays, but probably shouldn't be telling people where to go on holiday. Now this was a debate picked up by Kane Pirrie, who is of course the Chief Executive of Travel Republic. He took to task James Beresford, who's the Chief Executive of Visit England, to say why was that money being spent on the advert? It was a heated debate. It's exactly the type of discussion that we come to expect from Travel Matters. And Mark Tanzer, our Chief Exec, weighed into that debate, as did Mary Rance, the Chief Exec of UK Inbound, with a particular inbound perspective on it. That was left to John Penrose, who's of course the Tourism Minister, to sum it up, saying lessons have been learned from this campaign, and certainly as it's the first year of a 3-year campaign, it may be different in the future. This is of course something that ABTA will be keeping a close eye on. Now John Penrose also presented on this stage here about his vision for tourism in the UK. Good on promises here, looking to have a new dynamic between domestic, inbound and outbound tourism. What ABTA is really keen to see now is that the government puts actions against those words and that we're able to really have a tourism mix policy from this government that supports all the different types of sector. Now our final panel discussion for today was all about connectivity. How are we travelling? What's the future hold for our policy in terms of air travel and other types of connectivity? Now, Councillor Daniel Moylan, who is Boris Johnson's deputy when it comes to aviation matters, presented a really strong case that said London needs more aviation capacity, and the best place, in Boris Johnson's opinion, for that is to the east of the capital. Now, aviation capacity is a very live subject and one that we expect the government to be coming out with their policy on shortly. This was a good debate that really got to the heart of what we need. Is this about business travel versus leisure travel? Is this about hub versus point-to-point airports? The debate concluded that it's a little bit of everything, and the sooner we can have an evidence-based approach, the better it will be for the sector. Now, you can find out more about ABTA's Travel Matters events and what ABTA's doing in terms of public affairs on ABTA's website. That's abta.com. And don't forget, you'll be able to download the presentation about the value of outbound tourism and also the stats and figures presented by Deloitte on our website. And so until 2013, when we'll be back here for ABTA's Travel Matters Conference, thank you for watching. Thank you.
Very interesting. I really enjoyed Justin Greening's session. Interesting to hear from the horse's mouth, as it were, about government policy and what their plans are. Obviously have a bit of a difference of opinion, but really interested to hear all the opinions of other big players in the market. So I found it very useful.
Well, it's fantastic to get the Secretary of State in the building and get her to set out what she thinks, but also answer some questions from a range of airlines, tour operators, and try and find out a little bit more about what she's thinking about the issues, both in the short term and in kind of longer issues like aviation capacity, etc.
I think it's a fantastic opportunity for people to get together with those in government who really make policy. I think it's an excellent idea to have this forum between the annual overseas conventions.
I was particularly interested as well in the information from Deloitte, really, which reconfirms a lot of the things that we're seeing within the industry and within our business. So particularly the information and the data and the presentation that was delivered on that, I think, was excellent.
It's been a very informative day. It's been good to see and meet up with some like-minded people in our industry. I think there have been some very positive messages, particularly in my sector, about potential growth in the long-haul sector, in the luxury sector.
I must say, I thought this was excellent, probably the best so far. Nice to see input from government and certainly from Boris's office, which I really think probably shows a commitment from him to the whole travel world, the whole travel industry, and certainly a commitment to London.
For me, this has become a real fixture in my diary, and I wouldn't miss it. I've been to all three of these events, and I think they are hard-hitting, straight to the point, and you always get real influential speakers to come.